Hello. Chapter 5, Part 2, pages 51 to 68. Earlier in the day it rained, and the storm cooled everything off. Water evaporates from puddles in the streets, leaving a shimmering layer of mist over Portland. Above us, the sky is now a vivid blue. The bay is flat and silver, the coast like a giant belt cinched around it, keeping it in place. I don't ask Hannah where she's going, but it doesn't surprise me when she starts winding us down Old Port, toward the old footpath that runs along Commercial Street and up to the labs. We try to keep on the smaller, less trafficked streets, but it's pretty much a losing game. It's 3:30. All the schools have been released, and the streets surge with students walking home. A few buses rumble past, and one or two cars squeeze by. Cars are considered good luck. As they pass, people reach out their hands and brush along the shiny hoods, the clean, bright windows, which will soon be smudged with fingerprints. Hannah and I run next to each other, reviewing all the day's gossip. We don't talk about the botched evaluations yesterday or the rumors of the invalids. There are too many people around. Instead, she tells me about her ethics exam, and I tell her about Cora Dervish's fight with Minnie Wilkinson. We talk about Willow Marks, too, who's been absent from school since the previous Wednesday. Rumor is that Willow was found by regulators last week in Deering Oaks Park after curfew with a boy. We've been hearing rumors like that about Willow for years. She's just the kind of person people talk about. She has blonde hair, but she's always coloring different streaks into it with markers. And I remember once on a freshman class trip to a museum, we passed a group of Spencer Prep boys, and she said so loud one of our chaperones could have easily heard. I'd like to kiss one of them straight on the lips. Supposedly, she was caught hanging out with a boy in the 10th grade and got off with a warning because she showed no signs of the deliria. Every so often, people make mistakes. It's biological, a result of the same kind of chemical and hormonal imbalances that occasionally lead to unnaturalism, to boys being attracted to boys and girls to girls. These impulses, too, will be resolved by the cure. But this time it is serious, apparently, and Hannah drops the bomb just as we turn onto center. Mr. and Mrs. Marks have agreed to move the date of Willow's procedure up by a full 6 months. She'll be missing graduation day to get cured. 6 months, I repeat? We've been running hard for 20 minutes, so I'm not sure if the heavy thumping in my chest is the result of the exercise or the news. I'm feeling more out of breath than I should be, like someone's sitting on my chest. Isn't that dangerous? Hannah tips her head to the right, gesturing the way to a shortcut through the alley. It's been done before. Yeah, but not successfully. What about all the side effects? Mental problems, blindness. There are a few reasons why the scientists won't let anyone under the age of 18 have the procedure. But the biggest one is that it just doesn't seem to work as well for younger people than that. And in the worst cases, it's been known to cause all kind of crazy problems. Scientists speculate that the brain and its neural pathways are still too plastic before then, still in the middle of forming themselves. Actually, the older you are when you have the procedure, the better. But most people are scheduled for the procedure as close as possible to their 18th birthday. I guess they think it's worth the risk, Hannah says. Better than the alternative, you know. Amor deliria nervosa. The deadliest of all deadly things. This is the catchphrase that's written on every mental health pamphlet ever written about the deliria. Hannah's voice is flat as she repeats it, and it makes my stomach dip. All of yesterday's craziness has made me forget Hannah's comment to me before the evaluations, but now I remember, and remember how strange she looked too, eyes cloudy and unreadable. Come on! I feel a straining in my lungs, and my left thigh is starting to cramp. The only way to push through it is to run harder and faster. Let's pick it up, slug. Bring it! Hannah's face splits into a grin, and both of us start pumping faster. The pain in my lungs swells up and blossoms until it feels like it's everywhere, tearing through all my cells and muscles at once. The cramp in my leg makes me wince every time my heel hits the pavement. It's always like this on miles 2 and 3. Like all the stress and anxiety and irritation and fear get transformed into little needling points of physical pain. And you can't breathe or imagine going farther or think about anything but, I can't. And then suddenly, just as suddenly, it's gone. All the pain lifts away. The cramps vanish. The fist eases off my chest, and I can breathe easily. Instantly, a feeling of total happiness bubbles up inside of me. The solid feeling of the ground underneath me, the simplicity of the movement, rocketing off my heels, pushing forward in time and space, total freedom and release. I glance over at Hannah. I can tell from her expression that she's feeling it too. She has made it through the wall. She senses me looking and whips around, her blonde ponytail a bright arc to give me the thumbs up. It's strange. When we run, I feel closer to Hannah than at any other time. And even when we're not talking, it's like there's an invisible cord tethering us together, matching our rhythms, our arms, and our legs, as though we're both responding to the same drum beat. More and more it has been occurring to me that this, too, will change after our procedures. She'll retreat to the West End and make friends with her neighbors, with people richer and more sophisticated than I am. I'll stay in some crappy apartment on Cumberland, and I won't miss her or remember what it felt like to run side by side. They've warned me that after the procedure, I may not even like running anymore. Another side effect of the cure. People often change their habits afterward, lose interest in their former hobbies and things that have given them pleasure. The cured, incapable of strong desire, are thus rid of both remembered and future pain after the procedure. The Safety, Health, and Happiness Handbook on page 132. The world is spinning by, people and streets, a long unfurling ribbon of color and sound. We run past St. Vincent's, the biggest all-boys school in Portland. A half-dozen boys are outside playing basketball, lazily dribbling the ball around, calling to one another. Their words are a blur, an indistinct series of shouts and barks and short bursts of laughter, the way that boys always sound whenever they're in groups. Whenever you only hear them from around the corners or across the streets or down the beach. It's like they have a language all of their own, and for about the thousandth time, I think how glad I am that segregation policies keep us separate most of the time. As we run by, I think I sense a momentary pause, a fraction of a second, when all their eyes lift and turn in our direction. I'm not too embarrassed to look. My whole body goes white hot, like someone's just stuck me headfirst into an oven. But a second later, I feel their eyes sweeping past me, a wind, latching onto Hannah. Her blonde hair flashes next to me, a coin in the sun. The pain is creeping back into my legs, a leaden feeling, but I force myself to keep going as we round the corner of the commercial street and leave St. Vincent's behind. I feel Hannah straining to keep up next to me. I turn my head, barely managing to gasp out, "Race you!" But as Hannah pulls up, arms pumping, and nearly passes me, I put my head down and lunge forward, cycling my legs as fast as I can, trying to suck air into my lungs, which feel like they've shrunk to the size of a pea, fighting the screaming in my muscles. Blackness eats the edges of my vision, and all I can see is the chain-link fence that rises up in front of us suddenly, blocking our path. And then I'm reaching out and thwacking it so hard it begins to shake, turning around to yell, "I won!" as Hannah pulls up a second behind me, gasping for a breath. Both of us are laughing now, hiccuping and taking huge gulping breaths of air as we pace around in circles, trying to walk it off. We can finally breathe again. Hannah straightens up, laughing. "I'd let you win," she says, an old joke of ours. I toss some gravel in her direction. She ducks away, shrieking, "Keep telling yourself that." My hair has come out of its ponytail, and I wrestle it out of its elastic, flipping my head down so I get the wind on my neck. Sweat drips down into my eyes, stinging. "Nice look." Hannah pushes me lightly, and I stumble sideways, whipping my head up to swipe back at her. She sidesteps me. There's a gap in the chain-link fence that marks the beginning of a narrow service road. This is blocked with a low metal gate. Hannah hops it and gestures for me to follow. I haven't really been paying attention to where we are. The service drive threads down through a parking lot, a forest of industrial dumpsters and cargo storage sheds. Beyond those is the familiar string of white square buildings like giant teeth. This must be one of the side entrances of the lab complex. I now see that the chain link fence is looped on top with barbed wire and marked at 20-foot intervals with signs that all read private property, no trespassing, and authorized personnel only. I don't think we're supposed to, I start to say, but Hannah cuts me off. Come on, she calls out, live a little. I do a quick scan of the parking lot behind the gate and the road behind us. No one. The small guard hut just past the gate is also empty. I lean over and peek inside. There's a half-eaten sandwich sitting on wax paper and a stack of books piled messily on a small desk next to an old-fashioned radio, which is spitting static and patchy bits of music into the silence. I don't see any surveillance cameras either, though there must be some. All the government buildings are wired. I hesitate for a second longer, then swing myself over the gate and catch up to Hannah. Her eyes are lit up with excitement, and I can tell that this was her plan and her destination all along. This must be how the invalids got in, she says in a breathless rush, as though we've been walking about yesterday's drama at the labs all this time. Don't you think? Doesn't seem like it would have been hard. I'm trying to sound casual, but the whole thing, the empty service road and the enormous parking lot, shimmering in the sun, the blue dumpsters and the electrical wires zigzagging across the sky, the sparkling white slope of the lab roofs, makes me uneasy. Everything is silent and very still, frozen almost the way things are in a dream or just before a major thunderstorm. I don't want to say it to Hannah, but I'd give pretty much anything to head back to Old Port, to the complex nest of familiar streets and stores. Even though there's no one around, I have the impression of being watched. It's worse than the normal feeling of being observed in school and on the street and even at home, having to be cautious about what you say and do. The close, blocked-in feeling that everyone gets used to eventually. Yeah, Hannah kicks the packed dirt road. A plume of dust puffs up, resettles slowly. Pretty crappy security for a major medical facility. Yeah, pretty crappy security for a petting zoo, I say. I resent that. The voice comes up from behind us, and both Hannah and I jump. I spin around. The world seems to freeze for an instant. A boy is standing behind us, arms crossed, head cocked to the side. A boy with caramel-colored skin and hair that's a golden brown color, like the autumn leaves getting ready to fall. It's him. The boy from yesterday, from the observation deck, the invalid. Except he isn't an invalid, obviously. He's wearing a short-sleeved blue guard's uniform over jeans, and he's got a laminated government ID clipped to his collar. I leave for 2 seconds to get a refill. He gestures to the bottle of water he's holding, and I come back to find a full-fledged break-in? I'm so confused I can't move or speak or do anything. Hannah must think I'm scared because she jumps in quickly. We weren't breaking in. We weren't doing anything. We were just running and we got lost. The boy crosses his arms in front of his chest, rocking back on his heels. Didn't see any of the signs outside, huh? No trespassing? Authorized personnel only? Hannah looks away. She's nervous too. I can feel it. Hannah's 1,000 times more confident than I am, but neither of us is used to standing in the open and talking to a boy, especially not a boy guard. And it must have occurred to Hannah that he already has plenty of grounds to arrest us. Must have missed them, she mumbles. Uh-huh. He raises his eyebrows. It's obvious he doesn't believe us, but at least he doesn't look angry. They're pretty subtle. Only a few dozen of them. I can see how you might not have noticed. He looks away for a second, squinting, and I get the feeling he's trying to stop himself from laughing. He's not like any guard I've ever seen. At least not the typical guards you see at the border and all around Portland, fat and scowly and old. I think about how sure I was yesterday that he came from the wilds, the solid certainty deep inside of me. I was wrong, obviously. As he turns his head, I see the unmistakable sign of someone who is cured. The mark of the procedure, a 3-pointed scar just behind the left ear, where the scientist insert a special 3-pronged needle used exclusively for immobilizing the patient so that the cure can be administered. People show off their scars like badges of honor. You hardly see any cureds with long hair. And the women who haven't lopped off their hair entirely are careful to wear it pulled back. My fear recedes. Talking to a cured isn't illegal. The rules of segregation don't apply. I'm not sure if he has recognized me or not. If so, he hasn't given any sign of it. Finally, I can't take it anymore and I blurt out, I saw you. At the last second, I can't finish the sentence. I saw you yesterday. You winked at me. Hannah looks startled. You two know each other? She shoots a look at me. Hannah knows I've hardly ever exchanged 2 words with a boy before, unless it's excuse me in the street or sorry for stepping on your toes when I trip on someone. We're not supposed to have more than minimal contact with uncured boys outside of our own families. Even after they've been cured, there's hardly a need or excuse for it, unless we're dealing with a doctor, a teacher, or someone like that. He turns to look at me. His face is completely professional and composed, but I swear I see something flickering in his eyes, a look of amusement or pleasure. No, he says smoothly. We've never met. I'm sure I would remember. The flash in his eyes is back. Is he laughing at me? I'm Hannah, Hannah says, and this is Lena. She jabs me with an elbow. I know I must look like a fish standing there with my mouth gaping open, but I'm too outraged to speak. He's lying. I know he's the one I saw yesterday. Would bet my life on it. Alex, nice to meet you. Alex keeps his eyes on me as he and Hannah shake hands. Then he extends a hand to me. Lena, he says thoughtfully. I've never heard that name before. I hesitate. Shaking hands makes me feel awkward, like I'm playing dress-up in an adult's too big clothing. Besides, I've never actually touched skin to skin with a stranger, but he's just standing there with his hand out, so after a second I reach out and shake. The moment we touch, a tiny electrical shock buzzes through me and I pull away quickly. It's short for Magdalena, I say. Magdalena. Alex tips his head back, watching me from narrowed eyes. Pretty. I'm momentarily distracted by the way he says my name. In his mouth, it sounds musical, not clunky and angular, the way my teachers have always made it sound. His eyes are a warm amber color, and as I look at him, I have a sudden flashing memory of my mother pouring syrup over a stack of pancakes. I look away, feeling ashamed, as though he has somehow been responsible for dredging the memory up, has reached in with his hands and wrenched it from me. Embarrassment makes me feel angry, and I press on. I do know you. I saw you yesterday in the labs. You were on the observation deck, watching everything. Again, my courage fails me at the last second, and I don't say, watching me. I can feel Hannah glaring at me, but I ignore her. She must be furious I haven't told her any of this. Alex's face doesn't change. He doesn't blink or drop a smile for even a fraction of a second. Case of mistaken identity, I guess. Guards aren't allowed in labs during evaluations, especially not part-time guards. For a second longer, we stand there staring at each other. Now I know he's lying, and the easy, lazy grin on his face makes me want to reach out and slap him. I ball my fist and suck in a deep breath, willing myself to stay calm. I'm not the violent type. I don't know why I'm feeling so aggravated. Hannah jumps in, breaking the tension. So this is it. A part-time security guard and some keep out signs. Alex keeps his eyes on me a half second longer. Then he turns to look at Hannah as though noticing her for the first time. What do you mean? I would have thought the labs would be better protected, that's all. It doesn't seem like it would be too hard to break into this place. Alex raises his eyebrows. Thinking about making the attempt? Hannah freezes and my blood goes into ice. She has gone too far. If Alex reports us as potential sympathizers or troublemakers or anything, we're in for months and months of surveillance and investigation, and we can kiss our chances of passing the evaluations with decent scores goodbye. I picture the lifetime of watching Andrew Marcus fish snot out of his nose with a thumbnail and feel queasy. Alex must sense our fear because he raises both hands. Relax, I was kidding. You don't exactly seem like terrorists. It occurs to me how ridiculous we must look in our running shorts and sweaty tank tops and neon sneakers. Or at least I must look ridiculous. Hannah looks like a model for athletic wear. Again, I feel a bit of blushing coming on, followed by a surge of irritation. No wonder the regulators decided on the segregation of boys and girls. Otherwise, it would have been a nightmare, this feeling angry and self-conscious and confused and annoyed all the time. This is just the loading area anyway, for freight and stuff. Alex gestures beyond the line of cargo sheds. Real security starts closer to the facilities. Full-time guards, cameras, electrified fence, and the whole shebang. Hannah doesn't look at me, but when she speaks, I can hear the excitement creeping into her voice. The loading area? Like where the deliveries come? In my head, I start praying, don't say anything dumb, don't say anything dumb, do not mention invalids. You got it. Hannah dances on her feet, shifting her weight back and forth. I try to shoot her a warning look, but she avoids my eyes. So this is where the trucks come, with medical equipment and other stuff? Exactly. Again, I have the impression of something flickering behind Alex's eyes, even as the rest of his face stays totally neutral. I don't trust him. I realize, and again wonder why he is lying about being in the labs yesterday. Maybe only because it's forbidden, like he said. Maybe because he was laughing instead of trying to help out. And maybe, after all, he doesn't recognize me. We made eye contact for only a few seconds. I'm sure to him I was only a blurry in-between face. Easy to forget. Not pretty. Not ugly either. Just plain. Like 1,000 other faces you would see on the street. He, on the other hand, is most definitely not in between. There's something insane to me about standing in the open, talking to a strange boy, even if he is cured. And though my head is whirling, it's like my vision gets razor sharp, making everything look ultra detailed. I notice the way a piece of his hair curls around his scar, like a frame. I notice his large brown hands and the whiteness of his teeth and the perfect symmetry of his face. His jeans are faded and belted low on his hips, and the laces in his sneakers are the weirdest ink color blue, like he has colored them with an ink pen. I wonder how old he is. He looks my age, but he must be slightly older, maybe 19. I wonder too, a brief flitting thought, whether he's already been paired. But of course he has. He must have been. I'd been staring at him accidentally, and he turned suddenly to look at me. I dropped my eyes, feeling a quick and irrational terror that he has managed to read my thoughts. I'd love to look around, Hannah hints not so subtly. I reach out and pinch her when Alex isn't looking, and she shrinks away, giving me a guilty look. At least she doesn't start grilling him about what happened yesterday and get us thrown in jail or dragged through an interrogation. Alex tosses his water bottle in the air, catches it in one hand. Trust me, there's nothing to see, unless you're a fan of industrial waste. There's plenty of that around here. He tips his head down toward the dumpsters. Oh, and the best view of the bay in Portland. We've got that going for us, too. Really? Hannah wrinkles her nose, momentarily distracted from her detective mission. Alex nods, tosses the bottle again, catches it As it arcs through the air, the sun winks through the water like light from a jewel. That I can show you, he says. Come on. All I want is to get out of here, but Hannah says, sure. So I trudge along after her, silently cursing her curiosity and fixation with all things invalid-related, and vowing never to let her pick our running route again. She and Alex walk in front, and I pick up scattered bits of their conversation. I hear him say he takes classes at one of the colleges, but miss what he says he studies. Hannah tells him we're about to graduate. He tells her he's 19. She says that we're both turning 18 in several months. Thankfully, they avoid talking about the botched evaluations yesterday. The service road connects with another, smaller drive, which runs parallel to 4th Street, slanting steeply uphill toward the eastern promenade. Here, there are rows of long metal storage sheds. The sun is flat and high and unrelenting. I'm incredibly thirsty, but when Alex turns around and offers me a sip of his water bottle, I say no quickly and too loud. The thought of putting my mouth where his mouth has been makes me feel anxious all over again. As we come up to the top of the hill, all three of us panting a little from the climb, the bay unfolds to our right like a gigantic map, a sparkling, shimmering world of blues and greens. Hannah gasped a little. It really is a beautiful view, unobstructed and perfect. The sky is full of poofy white clouds that make me think of feather pillows, and seagulls turn lazy arcs over the water, patterns of birds forming and dissolving in the sky. Hannah walks forward a few feet. It's amazing. Gorgeous, isn't it? No matter how long I live here, I never get used to it. She turns and looks at me. I think this is my favorite way to see the ocean. Middle of the afternoon, sunny and bright. It's just like a photograph, don't you think, Lena? I'm feeling so relaxed, enjoying the wind at the top of the hill, which sweeps over my arms and legs and makes me feel cool and delicious, enjoying the view of the bay and the high blinking eye of the sun. I've almost forgotten that Alex is with us. He's been hanging back, standing a few feet behind us, and ever since we came up the hill, he hasn't said a word. Which is why I nearly jump out of my skin when he leans forward and directs a single word into my ear. Gray. What? I whirl around, my heart pounding. Hannah has turned back to the water and is going on about wishing she had her camera and how you never seem to have anything you really need. Alex is bent close to me, so close I can see his individual eyelashes, like perfect brush strokes on a canvas portrait, and now his eyes are literally dancing with light, burning as though on fire. What did you say? I repeat. My voice comes out, a croaky whisper. He leans another inch closer, and it's like flames seep out of his eyes and light my whole body on fire. I've never been this close to a boy before. I feel like fainting and running all at the same time, but I can't move. I said, I prefer the ocean when it's gray. Or not really gray, a pale in-between color. It reminds me of waiting for something good to happen. He does remember. He was there. The ground seems to be dissolving under my feet the way it does in the dream about my mother. All I can see are his eyes, the shifting pattern of the shadow and light turning there. You lied, I managed to croak out. Why did you lie? He doesn't answer me. He pulls away a few inches and says, of course, it's even prettier at sunset. Around 8:30, the sky looks like it's on fire, especially at Back Cove. You should really see it. He pauses, and though his voice is low and casual, I get the feeling he's trying to tell me something important. Tonight, it will probably be amazing. My brain grinds into action, slowly processing his words, the way he's emphasizing certain details. Then it clicks. He has given me a time and a place. He's telling me to meet him. Are you asking me to? I start to say, but just then Hannah runs back to me, grabbing my arm. God, she says, laughing. Can you believe it's after 5 already? We have got to go. She's dragging me backward before I can respond or protest, and by the time I think to look over my shoulder to see If Alex is watching or giving me any kind of sign, he has disappeared from view.